Hey guys, what's going on? It's Vince Buck down here in the Rack Studio, and I got Natalie on. We're going to talk about leadership today. But before I get started, I want to thank Rack Studios down here in Tampa, Florida, for always giving a lot of support. Great team here. Just get in contact with them if you need a home mortgage. They're going on. What's going on?
Hi, Vince.
How's it going? So today we're going to cover some leadership stuff. So how's the weather up there in Chicago or Illinois?
It's beautiful today. It's hot and humid, but it's not the hot and Florida humid. So I would rather be by you.
That's right. That way the weather works really good. You know, we talk about leadership and how things have changed over the last, 20 years and how things keep progressing since COVID. But before we really get started in that, hey, let's give a little background about who you are and what you do today, what you do now.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with what I'm doing now. Currently, I am the proud principal of Lowry Elementary School. We are part of U46. We're the second largest district in the state of Illinois, and very excited to begin this new chapter in my career as principal this year. Prior to this, I was an assistant principal in the district for 2 years. I have been involved in instructional coaching, and I have also been a K-5 special education teacher, a second and third grade teacher. I'm also a recently authored a children's book called Sassy Circles, Her Special Heart. So I'm really excited about that. Outside of career, I am a mom of 3 amazing boys. Cole is 21, and he actually was just sworn in as a police officer the other day.
Congrats.
I know, we're very excited. I have an 18-year-old who is going to be an electrician, and I have a almost 16-year-old. So Alec is 16 and Dylan is 18. We keep it very busy in our house. My husband's also in law enforcement, and we just like to enjoy one another, enjoy our family. We love coming to Florida, but most importantly, I try to live every day with that hustler mindset.
That's right. That's what we all got to do. And you guys all know me. I'm an Embrace the Power Vince Bugs, and I'm always on with my boy Mike G, who's out today. And we just, cover a lot of different topics about a lot of great people. And we got Natalie on today to cover a couple things. Nat, as time has evolved and we look at leadership, what are some of the fundamental things that you think have changed since you started in the teaching? Well, and before you were a teacher, you had another life, just like everyone else. So what do you think, some of the things that you think you have seen a change in or transition in that, weren't prevalent before? So.
One of the big things we're seeing right now is academic teaming in our classrooms. And when I say academic teaming, it's all about having student-centered goals, complex, rigorous tasks set up for our students. And we want the students to do most of the work. We want the teachers to step back and take that consultative approach, act as more of the facilitator. So we're really trying to have more peer-to-peer teaching in our classrooms.
Right.
Students are having productive struggle, not because they don't understand what the teacher is teaching, but because they've been given a problem, a task, something for them to figure out with a team of peers so that they can learn from one another. We really want to see the teacher take a step back, give that short 20-minute mini lesson on what she wants the students or what he wants the students to accomplish during this task, lay that general foundation, but then we want to see the kids do a majority of the work. That's one of the big things we're seeing right now.
You're taking a model from like Scandinavia because they've went into more of the peer-to-peer European learning. So here's the one challenge I would ask is that it has to carry on what happens in the classroom, but how is that handled with kids that don't have a structured family life?
I love this question. I love this topic because our classrooms, our schools are sometimes the best environment some of our students will see all day long. And so we really pride ourselves as leaders in our district as to how are we spending the instructional and non-instructional minutes to be effective for our students. One of the things that we focus heavily on right now is conditions for learning. We want to ensure that we are setting the conditions within our school and within our classrooms to be supportive of our students. And what does that look like, right? How are they connecting with their peers? What are those relationships like? How are they connecting with their teachers? We want students we want to build environments for our students that give them an opportunity to be their authentic self, to be vulnerable and to be able to feel vulnerable, that it's okay to make mistakes, right? So we want to create these classrooms, these school environments that allow students the opportunity to feel that they can be their authentic self, and it's okay if you make an error, it's okay if you make a mistake, because they're really not mistakes anymore. These are the way that our students are learning, and we want to be able to provide them the best environment, because like you just said, our school environments might be the best that they see all day. And because that's just the way it is. It's not anything they're doing or their parents are doing.
Keep it at 100, man. It's the reality of the world we live in.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. And so as I look at students in the classroom, and they're doing the peer-to-peer learning, and we used a great term. We talked about facilitation of that. So that goes back to leadership. So now you're trying to deprogram a bunch of teachers that have gone through a structured educational process from the college to now being critical thinking, to being more facilitators. So you have some older teachers, and I would be one of them, that came up through the formal brick and mortar structure. How are they adapting to this new concept? Because I know after I saw us we're going to it, and we've been working at it at the schools I was working with, it wasn't a smooth transition. Let me just be clear.
It wasn't. It wasn't just, we're just going to go right back into this now.
This is the way I've always done it, and I'm good with it going this way. But no, we're going to do it this way. So we moved away from lecturing to now facilitation, which are dynamically different.
So we're working with adults, right, that are on board with some of these processes and these changes. And we're also working with some adults who may be a little reluctant to that change, right? Because with change, obviously, comes sometimes a little bit of fear. And it's the fear of the unknown. It's sometimes the fear that I might fail at this. But in reality, if we flip that and we say, we're learning this together, no one's perfect at it, we're going to keep learning. It's not a sit and get a one-time thing, and we're going to be rolling with it, perfection. So what we really try to do is deliver strong professional development. And then we back that up with the continuous professional learning. So as initiatives become greater and more impactful and intentional, specifically, I know I could speak for our district, but in education in general, we want to have professional development that's meaningful and that has intentional purposes behind it, because otherwise, why are we doing it, right?
Why are we doing it, right?
What's the best thing for students, and how are we going to make that happen? Through providing teachers with professional development on any new topics, but then also being able to have continuous professional learning. So you might be learning about something for the first time, but how are we now going to be continuing that learning throughout the year? Because nothing's rolled out in one sitting, right? We need multiple opportunities to engage with these concepts, to talk with our colleagues, and to be able to have real collegial conversations about the things that we're learning so that we can work together for the benefit of our students. So strengthening that teaching and learning process has to come through the professional development opportunities. Let's say if we're talking about John Hattie's visible learning, that is huge right now in education. And so how are we going to be able to provide that opportunity for teachers to understand his concept of visible learning, what this means, right? We want to have great teachers by design, not by chance. It's no more I hope my son or daughter gets this teacher, right? We don't want teachers, right? Like we went to school and we looked, on the outside of the door, the building door, to see who our teacher was, and everybody talked about, I want this teacher or that teacher. No, we want great teachers by design. And so that now means we as school districts and as leaders need to talk about, how do we do this? And that's what John Hattie's work with visible learning is all about. And so we give that professional development, but now we have to have that continuous professional learning so that the teachers that are excited about it and the teachers that are a little reluctant, they're getting an opportunity on multiple occasions to really understand and learn about these new initiatives, about these new concepts, and how it's really best for students, because that's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it becomes down. I always say it always comes down to the consumer, and the consumer happens to be the student.
Yes.
And I used to tell the kids all the time. I said, "There's no reason for me to be here if you're not." You guys are like architecturally kind of change the colors of the walls, the posters, be more vibrant. Because what I'm starting to see is more vibrant, not just the old, the Constitution on the wall. There's teachers are actually putting a lot of effort nowadays. At our school, they were into making the rooms more vibrant, more inviting.
Right. And that goes along with us utilizing and that concept of conditions for learning, right? What are the conditions in our school? How are they best supporting students? Do students feel that they can be in a classroom that is open to them making mistakes, or, I'm not getting it the first time? That's okay, right? It's okay you haven't mastered this the first time. We're going to do a micro intervention. I'm going to sit back and listen to what's going on. I can pull teams or students aside and say, okay, we're going to, team leaders here, we're going to have a little huddle. This is what I'm hearing. Now I'm going to tell you something. I want you to go back and tell your team, right? So it's providing those conditions and those classroom environments where students feel that it's welcoming. They feel like they're important, that we're embracing their diversity, and that we want to see them be the best that they can be. So that's what we're really trying to do better for students, because we can have the best teachers in those classrooms, but if the conditions are not strong, if the conditions are not positive, if we're not cultivating a culture for learning, our students are never going to achieve and master what we want them to, because they're going to be afraid to speak. They're going to be afraid to be their authentic self. We need to not only ensure that we have strong teaching and learning happening in that classroom, but one could argue that if we don't have that level of respect and rapport in our classrooms, if students don't feel like their peers, they're accepted by peers and they accept their peers, and that their teachers are accepting of who they are, the learning is never going to happen. That barrier is always going to be there.
I tell every kid at my school this. They always say, I come from a broken home, Coach Bugs. I come from this, I come from that. But you know what I always tell them? I said, when you show up to school, you're on equal ground, equal footing. And he goes, and they always ask me, what do you mean? I said, the moment you get off the school bus, you guys are all here at the same time in the same classroom. It's a choice what you do in that classroom when you enter. Yeah, I said, so you may, whatever happens prior to the bus, I can't fix. But once you get on campus, you have an opportunity to go get a meal, go to sit in class, learn, and change your life.
Yes, absolutely. And they don't grasp that sometimes until they're told, right? No kid's waking up and saying, I have this huge opportunity I can seize today. When I walk into that classroom, I'm not, at a lower level or a higher level. I'm right here with my peers and we're all learning and growing together. Right. They don't walk in knowing that. So like you're saying, right, we need to create those conditions for students. We need for them to feel that we're creating environments where exactly what you said is happening.
Right. And, and the thing is, I'm going to throw the challenge on you, which is my big argument. And everybody gets mad at me about this. I argue a lot about standardized tests, but a reason I do that, and a lot of it has to do with me being almost 60 years old and growing up in the transition of segregation and integration, is that the standardized test it was back in my time, and be clarified to everyone, I'm a Gen Xer here. It was a weaponized system to categorize individuals in certain categories where the educational level wasn't at the academic level they needed to go to college. I know you still have to have standardized tests because it's a metric-driven system, data-driven, but how do you kind of try to take that angst away from the students,
Sure. One of the things that we, as for myself as a leader, that we try to do in our school, and I know our district is very strong in regards to providing appropriate interventions for students. And so we strengthen the system of what does our MTSS system look like? Okay, our multi-tiered system of supports. Are we appropriately providing interventions to students who truly are 1 to 2 grade levels behind? So we start with that. And our idea is we want students to come out of those interventions. So how are we using our guided reading time? How are we utilizing our guided math time, right? We have a workshop model of instruction. And so that's what we follow in our school district. And this is huge because if we're using that time appropriately, we're hitting upon all the facets of our instructional clarity model. And so one of the other things we're doing is last year, we started utilizing the IAR because that's the test that we give our students every spring here in Illinois. We are beginning to utilize the interim assessments. So what we're doing is providing students an opportunity to show us what they've already mastered and where they are on that spectrum of mastery. So we're able to say, let's take a look at where you are currently on these state standards. Where do we could analyze and disaggregate all of that data to see where are our students really in mastering that standard. So what we're doing is, it's not that old notion of you're teaching to the test. We need students to be mastering our Illinois state standards. And this is to move on to the next year. Well, how are we utilizing our interim assessments to be able to really hone in and say, what within this standard of learning are our students not understanding? Now we need to go back and say, how are we going to provide these complex, rigorous tasks so that they are going to master it? So they're learning along this trajectory and spectrum the whole year. Taking this test in the spring is just really able to see, how are we doing as a school? What's our school data? And now how are we able to pull from that data? What's the growth? What's the proficiency level, right? In math and science and ELA, so that we know where our school is going, so that we can see where are we going as a school. And it's not just, again, about how are we doing on this assessment, but what are the conditions for learning like in our classroom? Because our kids, if they don't feel welcomed, if they don't feel we're embracing their diversity and their uniqueness, they're never going to be able to learn. Well, we want students to be able to feel like they can bring in everything from their culture, right? And so the fact that you knew multiple languages, that's embraced. A lot of my experience in leadership is in dual language schools. And so we have students that are primarily coming from households that might be speaking primarily Spanish or might be speaking primarily Polish, right? We have different pockets of communities, I know, within our district, and this is really everywhere. We have a lot of newcomers at my new school. We have a language resource teacher this year specifically provided to our school because we need an individual to help work with our newcomers. Our district has an entire newcomer department. We're really trying to help. Yes, they do a phenomenal job. We are really trying to help families with that transition when they're arriving, because that's a huge change for not only the parents, but for the students. And so we want to be able to provide those supports not only to the students, but also to their families, right? So we're really trying to make that home to school and school to home connection. So we're embracing that diversity. We're embracing the fact that we have students coming in that know absolutely no English at all. And now how are we putting them in the appropriate dual language program, providing with the right supports, but also helping to support their families, because we need that support from home. It just can't always be in the school setting, because we need to ensure we're strengthening the system, not only within our school, but providing parents with the right opportunities to support their children. And they don't know sometimes what they don't know. And that's what I think sometimes a lot of people miss, is that we are always assuming. In today's world, we're always making these assumptions that people are knowing or understanding things. Right. We have to stop doing that, because unless we're asking the right questions, and that's where my instructional coaching background comes in, unless we're asking the right questions, we're never going to know what people know. We have to stop assuming.
How are you grooming the next person to be like, like in the military, we used to say this, it hasn't happened in years. So that's always been a big issue over the last 10 years of normally the senior leaders groom the next generation behind them. And what I even saw in the school system is I see one or two people being groomed, but I realize it takes a village to raise a school system. So you really should be like, grooming like multiple people and pushing your own staff to like get, you know, certified to become administrators. And I hear some people say, I don't never want to be administrator. And I always tell them, put your hat in the ring, even though you don't want to do it, have the credentials so you're eligible. So how do you navigate that?
So we, as principals in our district, we have executive directors. And because we're in the second largest district in the state of Illinois, we have the opportunity to be able to divide our schools into networks. So our network leaders, our executive directors, have done a lot of work this summer in that whole concept of supervising principals, right? Being able to lead principals, because it doesn't stop with just the principal, and it doesn't stop with an assistant superintendent or a superintendent. We have that amazing layer in between that allows us to learn from our executive directors. And so we have an opportunity to come together as a network, which is all of our leadership. So we have our principals, we have our assistant principals. We come together and we have an opportunity to have professional development, professional learning from our executive directors. So we have that connection to our superintendent and our cabinet leaders. So it's nice because we're able to not only talk to one another as leaders within our own network, but we also have a lot of opportunity to talk to other principals, other assistant principals in other networks as well when we have our all admin meetings. But one of the things we're really strengthening in our system is the ability to continue to develop our executive directors, because they're in essence developing us as school leaders, especially our principals. So one of the things I really love about our district, U46, is that they're always giving us the opportunity as school leaders to learn and grow. We're able to attend professional development. We're able to attend continuous professional learning. We have not only our cabinet leaders to learn from at our all admin meeting, but we have that opportunity to learn from our executive directors, and they have shown to be a very strong component to that grooming leaders or providing that continuous leadership opportunities to our principals and our assistant principals.
That's right. It's all about mentoring, you know, and shaping the future. And I always tell you, it's an art to mentor people. I tell people that all the time. It just doesn't happen. So with that being said, as you look at your district right now, what do you see for the future? What do you think? What's your hopes?
I hope we just continue the great work that we're doing. We're spending a lot of our time strengthening our systems. That's part of our moral imperative in our district, is to strengthen our systems until they work for all students. And so I love that we prioritize our students all the time, but at the same time, we prioritize our teaching staff. We want to be able to give our teaching staff an opportunity to learn and grow, because there's other opportunities for them. We encourage people to continue it. We have a program called Horizons for You in our district, and it provides opportunities for individuals to go back to school. And so we have a resident administrator program. So if you've been a principal for 3 or more years, you can not only have your assistant principal with you, but you can also have a resident administrator with you for a year, and they learn alongside you. So we're constantly growing leaders in our district. And I think we've done a fantastic job of just strengthening those programs so that we're giving other individuals, teachers that want to become leaders and administrators, they have an opportunity to do that right in our district through a local university program. So that's been amazing. And we're working on strengthening those systems that provide the conditions for learning, that are providing the strength within our core. So it's not about how are we providing just interventions to students that might need additional supports, but it's how do we provide it at the core? How are we doing it with our core instruction? And that's instruction for all, regardless of students, if they have an IEP or a 504 or our MTSS intervention. All of our students deserve to learn at the same level with the same material, learning the same standards. Everyone's learning might look a little different, but everyone needs to have that equal opportunity, or we're not doing what we need to be doing in education. So we really work on strengthening our systems in our district until they work for all students. And that's going to be continuous, right? We may never get there because education is always changing, but we're always driving forward and upward with that mindset.
Oh, and absolutely, because I think I was watching the news the other day, and I think the biggest thing was a teacher was retiring, and they showed the students that they showed up for his retirement from like 30, 40 years ago.
Oh my God.
And it's the impact that it's all about legacy and impact, man, when it comes to being a teacher. Anything that before we get out of here, so what advice would you have, since now we talked a couple years ago, so
yes.
A lot has changed in a couple of years since me and you met.
Yes.
So what do you think now, if you had to give some advice now that you have to reflect on everything that's happened since you moved into your new role, what advice would you give another person that's an educator listening to this?
Absolutely. Well, especially for our women educators, I think we just need to continue to be bold. There's not enough of us at the top, right? And we talk about the diversity with African-American males as well, right? No matter where you are, who you are, race, ethnicity, we just need to be bolder. We all need to be bolder, right? We're never going to get what we want if we just sit idly by. No one is coming to your house. I always say, like, even to my kids with sports, like, no one's coming here in Illinois to look for you. Okay, so how are you making a name for yourself and getting yourself out there? And that's all about that hustle mindset that I talk about.
Right.
So my main, I guess, prescription would be to continue to have that hustle mindset. Never let any stigma. I talk about that when I did pageants, right? There's this huge stigma that, oh, if you're in a pageant, it's all about beauty and your figure. And that's totally opposite. It's about what you bring to the table, your life experiences. These women are they blow me away with their intelligence. You have to have the ability to speak in front of others, right? So what I love and what I encourage other people to do is break those stigmas, break those barriers, go do that pageant, go write that book, right? I thought about writing a book for a long time, and finally
I'm waiting on the hustle theory. What we calling it? The hustle theory is what you're going to call it?
I call it the hustler mindset.
That's right. I'm waiting on that one. I need that one. Hey, I'm waiting on that one.
We could call it the hustler theory, but it's that no barrier is too strong. No barrier is too tall. Go and break it, right? Go break that barrier. Go break that stigma. Show people why it's different. One life to live. And you're either going to live it and be able to leave a legacy like you talk about, Vince, or you're going to live it under the notion that you're afraid to do some things because you're afraid what people might say. Go out there and live your life. No one's life is perfect. No one's marriage is perfect. No one's career is perfect. We are all in this world together, and it is just tough sometimes to be a human. Let's just face it. So if we feel like that as adults, right, that we're afraid to be who we want to be because of what the person next door is going to say, how are we going to teach our students to be bold? How are we going to teach them to be brave? We have to be intentional, and we have to have a mindset that there is no stopping, right? There's no end to this game. You keep going. You keep going. How many people can you impact along your journey is really the mindset we need to have.
But I appreciate you coming on today and covering everything, guys. And once again, if you need a mortgage, get in contact with Natalie. It was great having you on. And I hope the weather gets better and better because the cold's coming in Illinois.
Don't say that, Vince. I'm coming to visit you when the weather gets cold. So get my room ready.
That's right. Hey, we're doing okay. Hey, if they can get all that towel put in my house, so we're trying to get to. And with that being said, guys, keep it rolling.